What's up, kitchen table wizards? What's up, deck brewers from all over the world? Welcome to Casual MTG Decks. My name is Bram. I'm together here with my intern Nora. She is responsible for the editing, but also today, especially for the memes, right?
What's the deck called this time?
We are doing a Charbelcher deck.
Oh sure, I can do this.
Okay. So today is a good day because we are going to build a budget Charbelcher deck that's also a trip to memory lane. So before we start with the deck, first a little shout out to our sponsor Cardmarket, the place to get all your janky singles, and they are still supporting the show. They give me a €10 voucher, which I will give to you then, and the only thing you need to do is subscribe and leave a comment, and at the end of the video I will pick a random winner for the voucher. Now you can also support the channel just by telling all your friends to watch our gameplay videos. And to be honest, I am really happy that you're all so numerous by watching the gameplay videos, commenting on which deck you think will win. And about that, I just announced like a long year leaderboard, and I still need some ideas for matches for next year. And I was thinking I like to make budget brews of like very competitive tier 1, tier 2 decks, like this Goblin Charbelcher build. I also did Calamax Canadian Threshold deck, I did Goblins, Elves, Hypergenesis. Which decks of these kinds would you like to see battle it out? Just tell me in the comments and maybe you will win a voucher. Are we ready for the deck, Nora?
Sure.
Alright, let's do this. Now I'm going to start this video not with the basic lands, but with a little bit of an intro about the card Goblin Charbelcher. The card was printed in 2003. Let's ask Nora, how old were you in 2003?
2 years old.
Ah yeah, 2 years old. Makes me not really feel any younger. Thank you, Nora. Now the Goblin Charbelcher was already reprinted a few times, so it's not an expensive card. You can find it definitely for under $1. Now let's look at the card. I play 4 copies and it's an artifact. It costs 4 mana and you can tap it for 3 mana, and then you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a land card. Goblin Charbelcher then deals damage equal to the number of non-land cards revealed to any target. If the revealed card was a mountain, Goblin Charbelcher deals double damage instead, with revealed cards on the bottom of your library in any order. Now the Goblin Charbelcher deck recently resurfaced after the release of Zendikar Rising, because now with all those flip cards that turn into lands, you can have a deck with no lands in it, and then this will become a very good combo. Now I'm not going to really talk about the list like that. Several reasons. First of all, there are a lot of videos out there on the internet that talk about competitive Magic and talk about this deck. Second of all, it's not really a budget deck, so we can scratch that as well. And the third reason is that I wanted to make a list that takes a little bit of all the history of the Goblin Charbelcher competitive deck and we put it into a deck that is fun to play with at the kitchen table. So the build I'm making is definitely a lot cheaper and it has the whole history of the Goblin Charbelcher deck in one deck. Now the goal with the deck is to get to 7 mana and play a Goblin Charbelcher and tap it to do a lot of damage. Now our target is to do this on turn 3, 4 or 5 ideally. Now what's also important in a Charbelcher list is that we play as few lands as possible. The reason for that is simple. We want to turn over a lot of cards before we hit a land, or hopefully hit a mountain, because then we double the damage, or don't hit a land at all and then the Goblin Charbelcher deals damage equal to all the cards revealed. Are you still with me? Okay, good. Sounds like fun, right? Now, do we have some more artifacts in the deck? Yes, we do. 2 Chromatic Sphere and 2 Chromatic Stars are cheap artifacts that are here for the mana fixing, and they will be mostly changing our green mana into red mana. Lotus Petal is a wink to the legacy version of this deck. I only included 1 copy as this is an expensive card, but it's on flavor and we do stay within our budget without a problem. And the Talisman is also a good turn 2 play. Now we know that our goal is to get a lot of mana and find the Charbelcher in our deck. And Ancient Stirrings is a great card, as lands and artifacts are colorless. So this card has 16 targets in the deck. Land Grant is a card you probably never heard about, but it's a super sweet card that you can play for free if you have no lands in hand. And this happens often, and if you have it in your opening hand with a land, just first play the land and then play it for free. Another important thing is that this card will not search for a basic land, but it searches for a forest, which all the lands are in this deck. But more on this later. The following 2 cards search for basic lands. Caravan Vigil has 3 copies and Lay of the Land only 1 copy. I just wanna switch it up a little bit. Explorer is a good option in the early game to play an extra land, and Rampant Growth is also a solid ramp card that searches for a basic land. Abundant Growth will fix your mana and cycle as it draws, and I also included 1 Rites of Spring, which can get you even more lands, which is useful to filter out all the basics before you activate your Goblin Charbelcher. Now we do have other ways to make mana, not with lands but with spells.
Salagadoola, metricaboola, bibbidi bobbidi.
Rite of Flame has this really cool printing and it ramps, especially when you have a few of them in your graveyard. I also included 3 copies of Seething Song, which create 5 mana, 2 copies of Manamorphosis, which is great as it fixes our mana and draws us a card, and 1 copy of the Iron Crack Feat, which is the last spell you want to cast before casting the Goblin Charbelcher, because with 7 mana you can play it and activate it immediately. And there's also another reason I included this card. Look at the art of this one. Epic. Just epic. Now you might ask me, Bram, okay, nice, all those mana generating cards, but what if our opponent is starting to attack us? Do we play creatures? Yes, we do play creatures. We play 6 walls, 3 Wall of Roots and 3 Tinder Walls. They both block and provide mana, which is exactly what we need. And the first one of the next creatures is a throwback to the first time I ever saw this deck being played. The Orcish Lumberjack is a 1/1 for 1 mana that contributes to global warming by cutting down forests. But it also contributes to our mana ramp, so it's a reasonable trade. Sakura Tribe Elder is our Rampant Growth on a stick, which can also block. And Rose Thorn Acolyte fixes our mana and can act as a blocker to slow down our opponent or add some ramp. Then there's also Mages of the Wheel, a 3/3 for 3 mana. I think is solid, but sometimes you miss your draws, and then resetting and getting a full hand is really useful, as your goal will be to try to combo off on the next turn. Now let's finish the deck tech with some specials. Fateless Looting is on my restricted list, but in this deck I wanted to include 1 copy. It does a great job to search for our Charbelcher. And then there's also Thrill of Possibility, who also digs in our deck to search for our combo card. Now sometimes our opponent will remove all our Charbelchers, so I wanted to add an alternative win condition as well. Playing a bunch of spells after a Mages of the Wheel can result in you creating a lot of Goblin tokens, which can act as blockers or you can attack with them. Now the following 3 lands are spells on one side and lands on the other side. Now I know you can make a whole deck with those, but we want to keep it casual, and this deck is supposed to be a trip to memory lane for the Goblin Charbelcher fans. Spikefield Hazard is a cheap removal spell, Tangled Florahedron is a mana producer, and the Balagat Recovery gets back something from our graveyard. And very importantly, you can also play them all as land cards. And on this note, we go to the lands. We play only 6 lands in this deck.
Only 6 lands. Are you sure this will be enough?
Yes, don't worry Nora, it's fine, I tested it, 6 lands is enough. So the first 3 lands don't really count as our lands with our Charbelcher combo, because they're actually lands on the back of the card. And then of course we need to do a trip to memory lane for our basic lands. And for this I have chosen a land for forest actually from Rob Alexander. Now why Rob Alexander? He is also the artist from Taiga.
1, 2 racks, I'ma blow that.
The dual land that was played in the list from back in the day, as this is a mountain and a forest, but due to its price tag it's not really budget, but I do found a viable alternative. Sheltered Ticket and Cinderglade are also dual lands like Taiga, and they are also pretty sweet to hit with a Charbelcher, because they're forest but also mountains. Now let's talk power rankings. This is a combo deck that could do more than 50 points of damage on maybe turn 3 or 4, so the power level is definitely through the roof. It's also pretty complex to play. You have to know it well, and depending on what your opponent is playing, you can do a lot of different things and have a lot of different lines to play your cards. Because this is a €25 budget version, of course it is not as consistent as its legacy or modern versions. However, I think a 7 is not that bad. The deck focuses on getting to the combo and rarely wins with goblins, so therefore I decided to give it some lower numbers for offense and defense. Now how does the deck do against other decks? Well, pretty well actually. Against aggressive decks, having one of the 6 walls out in the early game is crucial, but apart from that, it does alright. Flying creatures might be the only trouble you'll have with aggressive creature decks. Against the mid-range decks, when you have some time to set up your combo, you will win a bunch of games. And my least favorite matchup is probably a control deck. Mainly because counterspelling my Charbelcher is a big issue. And versus other combo decks, if you're fast enough, you'll do alright, so a 7 is a good number there. And now it's time to celebrate. Nora, take it away.
This week's winner of the card market voucher is the big man of AK. Congratulations. You can find your info in the description down below.
So this was the deck for this time. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, keep it casual, 100% casual.